As if in a trance, Jenny quietly tucked the note into her pocket. Then she squared her shoulders and calmly went back to Olga. Olga was still standing in the same place by the unlit Primus, her eyes brimming with tears. Olya! Jenny cried remorsefully. I was only joking. Don't be cross with me. I cleaned the whole flat and the windows too. I really worked hard. I washed all the dusters and scrubbed the floors. Here's the key and here's the receipt for Dad's wire. Now let me give you a kiss. You know how much I love you. Want me to jump from the roof into the nettle patch for you? Without waiting for Olga to reply, Jenny hugged her. Yes, yes, but I was so worried, Olga said in desperation. You're always making the most pointless jokes. And Dad told me stop it, Jenny. Jenny, for goodness sake, my hands are all covered with kerosene. Look, Jenny, suppose you pour some milk into the saucepan and put it on the stove to boil. I can't help making jokes, Jenny muttered while Olga walked over to the washstand. She placed the pot of milk on the Primus, felt for the note in her pocket, and said, Olga, does God exist? No, replied Olga, lowering her face to the faucet. Well, who is it up there, then? Leave me alone! Olga exclaimed impatiently. There isn't anybody. Jenny was silent for a moment and then resumed. Olga, who is Timur? He's not God, he was a king, replied Olga grudgingly as she soaped her hands and face. A cruel, lame king out of the Middle Ages. But if this Timur isn't a king and isn't cruel and isn't out of the Middle Ages, then who is he? In that case I don't know. Leave me alone. What's all this about Timur anyway? Because I have a kind of feeling that he's a person I love very much indeed. Who is? Olga raised an incredulous, lathered face. What nonsense are you talking? Why must you always be making things up? Why can't you let me wash in peace? Just wait till Dad comes home. He'll see about this love of yours. Will he? How? Jenny cried with feeling. Even if he does come, it won't be for long. And he certainly wouldn't mistreat anybody so lonely and defenseless. Who's lonely and defenseless? Olga asked in surprise. You. Oh, Jenny, I really don't know what to make of you. I can't imagine who you take after. Jenny lowered her head, staring at her reflection. On the nickel-plated surface of the tea kettle, she replied proudly and without hesitation. After Dad. Just Dad. Him and him only. And after no one else in the world. The elderly gentleman, Dr. Kolokolshikov, was sitting in his garden tinkering with a wall clock. In front of him stood his grandson Nick with a doleful expression on his face. Nick was supposed to be helping his grandfather. Actually, however, he had been holding a screwdriver in readiness for more than an hour. Waiting for his grandfather to ask for it. But the steel spring which had to be pressed back into place was proving stubborn. And his grandfather was very patient. And it seemed there would be no end to Nick's waiting. It was just too silly, especially since Sima Simerkov's tousled head had already bobbed up several times over the fence. And Sima was a fellow who always knew everything that was going on. And this same Sima was making such strange and mysterious signs at Nick with his tongue, head and hands. That even Nick's 5-year-old sister Tata, who was sitting under a linden tree, trying to stuff a burr into the mouth of a sprawling dog, suddenly let out a scream and jerked her grandfather by the trousers. At this Sima Simerkov's head instantly disappeared. At long last the spring was properly installed. Man must toil, observed the grey-haired gentleman Kolokolshikov, raising his moist forehead and addressing Nick. You've no call to look as though I'd been giving you a dose of castor oil. Give me the screwdriver and take the pliers. Toil is ennobling. And nobility of character is just what you lack, my boy. Yesterday, for example, you had 4 helpings of ice cream and didn't share any with your little sister. She's lying, the shameless little brute. Cried Nick indignantly. He glared at Tata. I let her have 2 bites 3 times. And she goes and tells on me and takes 4 kopecks off Mom's table as she goes. And you climbed out of the window on a rope last night. Tata announced imperturbably, without turning her head. And you've got a torch under your pillow. And yesterday a bad boy threw stones through our bedroom window. He kept on and on throwing stones and whistling, throwing stones and whistling. Nick gasped at this base treachery on the part of the shameless Tata. He began to tremble from head to foot.